Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone is doing very, very well. So didn't have a lot of time today to do the usual video, so I did want to react to the AEW Blood and Guts news that's just come out over the last few minutes or so, and that's the viewership, the ratings. Now, a lot of the times I'm really hesitant here on the channel to talk about viewership and to talk about ratings because, and I sound like a broken record when I speak about this because it's true in the sense that do ratings mean everything in 2021? Of course they don't. Of course they don't. Do ratings tell the whole story in 2021? No, they don't. They don't take into account numerous factors, and to look at ratings and viewership figures and all that kind of stuff is maybe a slightly outdated look at things. That's an accurate, I think, argument, and it's something that definitely is worth discussing at a point in the future, and Lord knows we've spoken about it time and time again here on the channel. But they do serve a purpose still. They certainly are important. Why are they important? Well, of course, ratings and television viewership is always going to be important because it's important to the television networks. It's important to advertisers, and they're really the ones in 2021 that are really the key driving force of revenue for pro wrestling companies. That's just how it is. You look at a company like AEW, for instance, the reason they were profitable in its first year in existence is because of television revenue. That's what made them profitable in their first year, because they signed that deal with Warner Media, that new deal with Warner Media. They were profitable in their first year, and that's the reason why. That's the reason why when it comes to they're profitable in its first year. I don't know what's going on with that ticker tape. Let's just get rid of it. Anyway, I do want to talk about the viewership of last night because it is significant. It is very significant, and not necessarily the actual viewing number itself is significant, but what is significant is the demographic and the rating. So the AEW viewership has risen for last night's Blood and Guts special version of Dynamite on TNT. Now, Showbuzz Daily is reporting that AEW Dynamite drew 1.090 million viewers last night on May 5th. The number is, of course, up from last week, which drew 889,000 live viewers on TNT. This week, of course, AEW presented Blood and Guts, the match between the Pinnacle and the Inner Circle, which of course was the main event of last night's broadcast on TNT, which is AEW's take on the old War Games version, War Games match that WCW and Jim Crockett Promotions did in the past, complete with a roof on 2 cages and 2 rings, with submission or surrender being the only way to gain victory in the match. In the closing moments of the match, MJF, Maxwell Jacob Friedman pushed the Inner Circle's leader Chris Jericho off of the roof of the cage through the stage, which obviously had been a setup with a crash pad. We'll touch on that in a second. The ending has today drew some good-natured ribbing from NXT superstar Shotzi Blackheart on social media. We'll touch on that as well. But last night's show drew a 0.42 in the key 18 to 49 demographic, which is up from the 0.33 rating in the same demographic for the show last week. Now, the most important thing, I think, the most important thing to consider here is that AEW Dynamite finished number 1 among the top 150 cable original programming for the night on Wednesday, even beating out previous top 150 ranked shows such as The Challenge. Now, this is very significant because this is the first time that AEW Dynamite has ever finished as the number 1 show on cable. That's very significant. That's very, very significant. I think, to be honest, most people expected to see it rank to gain over 1 million viewers. I think that was obviously expected, and that's no surprise. Did I expect a little bit more than 1.090 million viewers? I mean, I'm not saying that number's disappointing because that's ridiculous. I think if anyone says, oh, it's a disappointing number in terms of that number, 1.090 million viewers, it's nuts, because having a show other than WWE drawing over 1 million live viewers on any network is very significant, and I think we have to celebrate that, not as an AEW fan or a WWE basher, an anti-WWE person or anything like that. The reason we need to celebrate that is because competition is a good thing, places to go for other pro wrestlers to work is a good thing, and just seeing any professional wrestling brand or any professional wrestling promotion be successful is significant, and that needs to be celebrated. So the number is good. there was lots of discussion going into last night's event, wasn't there, about what number it would do in terms of viewership? Because, and again, I don't know this to be a fact, so you're going to have to bear with me on this one. But as far as I'm aware, Blood and Guts was heavily promoted on TNT the night prior, which had the NBA on, and obviously the NBA coverage is going to be widely viewed. It's one of their biggest, arguably the biggest thing that they have on the network, TNT. And from what I could gather on social media, there was a lot of promotion for Blood and Guts the following night on TNT. So some people were expecting, considering that the NBA did good numbers on Tuesday, that Dynamite would have equal, well, maybe not equally good, but a significant number on Wednesday. Look, over 1 million views is significant anyway. Did they possibly want more? Maybe. I think they might have been looking at something going, oh, maybe we can get 1 point. If they got sort of over the 1.1 or into sort of 1.2 million territories, and maybe this is me being greedy and all this kind of stuff, but I don't know. It was a special version of Dynamite, wasn't it? It was a special version of Dynamite, so I think that's what they were. I think that's what they were looking for. I don't know what's happened there with my face. Let's turn that down. That's better. Yeah. So I don't know what they were. I don't know what they were expecting with that. So. But it's a good number. It's a good number, and I think they'll be happy with that. The key thing, as I mentioned, the really important thing that they're obviously going to be very, very happy with is finishing number one on cable for the night. But finish number one on cable for the night is very significant, and they'll be very happy with that in terms of sponsorship and in terms of pleasing the network. They'll be thrilled. To be honest, if they'd have got under 1 million viewers last night on TNT, but they'd still finish number one on the cable for the night, they'd be thrilled. They would have been absolutely thrilled with that. So it's a massive deal that they've finished number one on cable for the night. And look, it was a great show, and we'll touch on the finish and all that kind of stuff in a second, because I do want to touch on that, because it really was a point of contention last night. But we'll check in the chat briefly. Andrew Pollard says, "Hi Owen, I had a great time watching Blood and Guts. The main event was beautifully excruciating. I didn't mind the Jericho spot. It did what it needed to do. Can't fault anyone." Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the Jericho spot last night. You can see it there with MGF when he pushed Chris Jericho off the cage last night. Now, I must say, when I was watching it live for the watch-along last night, I didn't really at the time really see, until I saw it back a couple of times, I didn't really see the whole crash pad stuff and all that kind of stuff. And that was the big point that people were complaining about, is that Jericho gets pushed off this cage from 20 feet, 15 feet, probably about 20 feet, 15 feet. He gets pushed off the cage and he lands on the stage. Now, obviously, as you can see, and I wish I had a picture next to me to prove this, but as he comes through and he lands on the stage, they've cut out some very thin sheets of metal, or it might even be cardboard, I don't know, some very thin sheets of metal, and underneath it, it's a giant crash pad. And the way that Jericho falls through, all the metal just kind of moves out the way, and you can see that it's a giant crash pad there, and it didn't look great. It didn't look great. That's the thing there. It didn't look great. It did look fake, and even Jericho, when he was selling it, he had his eye open like that as he was looking around. It just didn't look great. But that's pro wrestling. These things happen. It's live television. It's a learning process. I was stunned, to be honest, that I wrapped up the watch along and I wrapped up the reaction stream last night, and I'm settling down for, I would say, we'll kind of say the evening, the morning, and I look on social media and there is this big backlash. There is this big backlash and uproar from certain people, furious, absolutely furious with the ending spot. And their big point of contention was it looked rubbish, it looked fake, it ruined the match. How dare he? What a terrible spot. And my reaction to that was, yes, I'm with you. I am totally with you. It did not look great, and it could have been shot a lot better, and the production around that could have been a lot better. But what do you want? Really, what do you want? Do you want Chris Jericho, who is 50 years old, who has had some issues with his back over the course of his career? Certainly in, I think it was 2011, 2012, just before he returned to WWE to do his feud with CM Punk. When he left WWE in 2010, or was it 2011, around whenever, 2011, whenever he left, he had some really serious back issues. I think he had some herniated discs in his back, and it was so bad and so severe that for a period of time, he wasn't sure. He genuinely wasn't sure if he was able to wrestle again. He thought, I'm not going to be able to wrestle again. I can barely walk. I'm in excruciating pain. What am I going to do? And it was only because of the miracle that is DDP yoga that he was able to come back from that injury, and he was able to extend his career and do all the great stuff he's doing today. So he's had significant back issues in the past. So he's 50 years old. He has significant back issues in the past, and he's taking a bump off the top of off the top of a cage, a 15-foot, 20-foot high steel cage, and people are upset that it didn't look good. What do you want? Well, you want him to jump off the cage for real? Would you want him to go through on spikes and explode and go into a million pieces? Or you want him to significantly really hurt himself? It didn't look good. It didn't look good. But the people that are on social media and they're saying that it ruined the match, it didn't ruin the match. If that ruined the match for you, then I feel sorry for you, because obviously you can't enjoy anything if you're going to pick holes in stuff like that. At the end of the day, it's pro wrestling. And I know some people won't like it when I say this, and I know people get angry when you point out that it's entertainment or that it's a work because they want suspension of disbelief. But at the end of the day, it is a work and it is entertainment. They must be the same people that watch, Thor, or they watch Iron Man, right? They see Iron Man, they see Tony Stark going, guy flying around in a metal suit, that's not happening, that's not realistic, I'm going to leave. A guy from another planet snapping his fingers, half of light existing, disappearing, that would never happen. That would never happen in real life. I'm not having that. I'm not having that. Ruin the movie for me. You know what you're getting yourself in for when you tune in the channel. It's called Blood and Guts. You're watching pro wrestling. You realize that it's a work. You realize it's an entertainment. You're tuning into a television program. That's how all of this works. So the moment you're going to start complaining that things don't look realistic, he's got pushed off of a cage and nobody's arrested MJF. It's not real. Because if this was real, MJF would get arrested, be put into jail because he pushed someone, he tried to kill him. That's how, you know what I mean? It's ridiculous. That point of criticism is ridiculous. And I guess it's just that line of fan questioning. It's the line of people on social media that they're just desperate to complain about something. If you can't enjoy the program, don't watch it. You know, and I thought it was ridiculous. And again, I'm with the criticism in the sense that it didn't look good, and people should learn, and people in AEW should learn from that. And certainly in these big set pieces and these big stunts, maybe AEW does need to learn a thing or two when it comes to the production side of things. Maybe they do need to figure that out and look at it and go, you know what, maybe we do need to improve on that. Maybe we do need to look at the production. Maybe we need to plan these things out better, and then maybe we need to know which camera angle to go to, and maybe we need to consult with different stunt people, all that kind of stuff. They're a young company, and when it comes to these live stunts, because you've only got one take, it's live, that's it. Well, that match was live. We'll talk about the other things there, because I don't want to touch on that as well. But you need to, the people that are complaining about that are saying that it doesn't look real. What do you expect? Now, there was a point of thought that said, well, maybe did they need to do the spot? Did they need to do that spot? Did they have to do the push off the cage? Of course they didn't need to do the spot. But I think I really do sympathize with AEW in this scenario. I really do sympathize with them, because obviously this wasn't just about the match itself. There are other things in play here, I think. And this finish did serve all of the purposes that they were looking for. They needed to find a way to have the babyfaces surrender without making the babyfaces look completely weak and completely stupid. That's what they needed. That's what they needed as well. That's important, I think. And having Sammy Guevara surrender because he didn't want to see his leader, his mentor, get hurt. That's a good way to get out of the match in the right way. And obviously the Pinnacle had to win, because if they lost, they would have been dead in the water. So I think that's what that finish served. Were there other ways to do that? Of course. But I think also this is going to lead to Sammy Guevara versus Chris Jericho down the line, because Chris Jericho can then turn around and say, how dare you surrender on behalf of me? You don't make any decisions on behalf of me, all that kind of stuff. So I think that served the right thing. So I think the good intentions were there. I think they wanted to end the match and the show with a bang, a big set piece, a big stunt. I think they wanted to have the Pinnacle win and not have the Inner Circle look weak. I think they wanted to set up and plant the seeds for Jericho versus Guevara at some point down the line. I think they wanted to make MJF look like this horrible, dastardly heel, in the sense that he threatened to do something to win the match, and then afterwards he did it anyway, because he's that callous, he's that cold, he's that just mega heel. So they achieved that. So I don't think there was anything wrong with the finish. I don't think there's anything wrong with the intention that they had. Could they have done other things? Well, you could say that about anything. You're living in the world of hypotheticals there. Could you have done, could you, would you? It's very easy to say that in hindsight. I don't think there was anything wrong with the intention or what they set out for the finish. I think that served all of the avenues they wanted to go down. It just could have been executed better. That's it. It just could have been executed better. But the people on social media that are complaining, it ruined the show, it ruined the match, and AEW's terrible because this and that, you just... what do you want? What do you want? You know what you're getting yourself in for when you tune into pro wrestling. If you're going to start looking for loopholes and looking at things that don't look real in pro wrestling, you might as well stop and not tune in. Because in a regular match, in a regular pro wrestling match, just the idea that someone would whip someone off the ropes and they would bounce off the ropes and do all that kind of stuff is completely illogical. There's no logic in that. There's no logic in lots of stuff with pro wrestling. So if you're really going to be, caught up on the finer details of things, you might as well not watch. You really might as well not watch. It's entertainment. It's a work. You have to go in with an element of suspended disbelief. Now, sometimes the programming can make that difficult to have that suspended disbelief. Sometimes it can be difficult, and you are sitting there going, "Oh, that's bullshit. That's rubbish." But yeah, you know what you're getting yourself in for. So could it have been done better? Absolutely. But did it ruin the show? No, of course it didn't. Of course it didn't. And I think that's ludicrous. I really do. Some comments in the live chat. Halo78 says AEW vs Impact Wrestling from Corey. Mark Mello says internet wrestling fans are the worst. Well, it's not internet wrestling fans and social media are the worst. It's just sometimes people are so reactionary and they look at something and sometimes people just have to say stuff. They have to. I have no problem with anyone sharing their opinion. I have no problem saying that I don't like something or I thought that was BS. But to try and frame it as, oh, it didn't look real. Pro wrestling, it's a work. It's a work. And again, what do you want? I'd much rather have a finish not look that great in execution, but knowing that Chris Jericho is fine after falling off a 20-foot cage, than him actually really hurting himself for the sake of it looking real. We've gone through that. We've gone through that in the 1990s of wrestlers hitting each other for real, setting each other on fire, hitting them over the head with chairs and all that kind of stuff, and people suffering really badly because of it. I'd much rather not have that than it say, oh, that didn't look great, but it's entertainment. It's entertainment. Heel reigns of gods, heels are awesome, says those people are clowns. Star Thor says lower than I thought, but still really good number for AEW. El Phantasmo should be awesome tonight on Impact. Yes, Impact has a big show tonight as well. So yeah, it was maybe not the viewership number that maybe AEW was thinking. Over 1 million, they'll still be very happy to do that. The most important element, of course, is that it's ranked the number 1 on cable for the first time. That's the big deal for AEW, and I'm sure they'll be very, very happy with that. Now, a couple of things I did want to touch on as well. So, as I mentioned, NXT superstar Shotzi Blackheart has pointed some fun at the finish last night for AEW Blood and Guts. Following the Blood and Guts match outcome between the Pinnacle and the Inner Circle last night on Dynamite, NXT superstar Shotzi Blackheart made light of the bump that Chris Jericho took at the end of the match on a clearly visible crash pad. She posted a tweet where basically it's someone jumping onto a bed, so it looks like a crash mat, and then says, "I love wrestling." She tweeted after that, said, "I love wrestling." To be honest, I had no problem with Shotzi Blackheart doing that at all. I mean, who cares? Really, who cares? The real shocking thing about the Shotzi Blackheart response of jumping onto the bed and making light of the crash pad and all that kind of stuff was just the vicious replies that she got for doing that tweet. Makes me embarrassed to be a pro wrestling fan, and maybe that's a big statement to make. And maybe people can look at that and say, "Oh, you're being over the top and you're being outrageous and all that kind of stuff." Some of the responses that Shotzi Blackheart got for that tweet are ridiculous. I mean, they are ridiculous. I mean, beyond. I mean, let's have a look now. I mean, we're live now. We can do whatever we want, can't we? Let's go on this. Let's go on this tweet. This is some of the stuff that Shotzi Blackheart was saying. It's just ridiculous. Right, so she posts the tweet. Someone put a post to her, and it's got like their profile picture's got a picture of Kenny Omega in it, and it says, "Can't wait to see you jobbing to Charlotte Flair on Raw in about a year or so." Gee, it's wrestling. Get over it. Another one says, "That's why you're on a show that gets 700K unopposed, and you lost." and then someone's posted a GIF of her trying to do something in the ring, trying to do a springboard and falling over. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous that people would be willing to get so angry. People would be willing to get so angry that she posted that on social media. I thought that's absolutely ridiculous. Get over it. It's pro wrestling, and it's not like. I mean, I don't, just as a fan, I really don't care if they throw shots at each other. It doesn't change my life or my viewing experience at all. It really doesn't. AEW does it to WWE on Being the Elite. They do all of these good-natured jabs and ribs, and every time they do it, social media gets uproar because people want a war. And I don't know why. People just love conflict. People thrive off conflict. People love to see people or these two companies going at each other. And they thrive to see these companies, I don't know, just being angry at each other or making it into tribalist. And you've got to pick a team. You've got to pick a team. You've got to be AEW. You've got to be WWE. And if they throw shots at each other, we'll go back at each other. And it's just so toxic. It is so toxic. And that is a good-natured rib. It's a good-natured joke. And it's the same when AEW does it to WWE. It's a good-natured joke. It's a good-natured rib. It's just a jab. That's it. And people just get so angry and so aggressive. And it's just like, come on. There is really no need. So Shotzi Blackheart, pokes fun at a finish. Suddenly you get all these people just viciously, well, you're going to be jobbing to Charlotte on Raw, and you're on a show that gets 700K, and you're terrible, and the posting botches of her in the ring. It's like, okay, calm down, take a joke, and it's the same the other way. You don't need to be so tribalish. You can just be a pro wrestling fan. What's wrong with being a pro wrestling fan? What's liking what you like and liking what you and not liking what you don't like? You don't need to. You don't need to. It's like the comment, I've had this before on some of my videos, and I've had it on some of my posts on social media, and it's the most moronic comment ever. When you post something, you'll say your opinion, and someone will reply, don't care. Well, if you don't care, you obviously care because you took the time to read it and do that post, which is probably the definition of caring. If you really didn't care, you would scroll past it and never have to look at it again. Some people are just so angry, aren't they? They're so angry, and I know it might seem ironic because I've just been on here moaning for the past 20 minutes or so, but come on, it's a tweet. It's Shotzi Blackheart poking fun. They both do it to each other. You don't. You don't need to complain all that much, and it's just ridiculous, isn't it? It really is ridiculous, and just. Again, it comes back to NXT and AEW at this point. They're on different nights. They're not even in direct competition with each other anymore. And yet some people are doing their very best. The competition still lives. We can still put them against each other. You can be a fan of both. You can watch both. You can enjoy both. You can criticize both. You can be a pro wrestling fan. You don't need to be so tribalist. And you certainly don't in this day and age. And I know social media is so toxic. And I know you've got trolls on social media. But really, as I said, it makes me ashamed to be a pro wrestling fan, to see people respond like that over nothing. And this is almost a common theme on today's stream, isn't it? Is that even you've got a great event last night, you've got a great event, an unbelievable main event, lasted 40 minutes, you've got blood, violence, you've got something completely different to what WWE's doing, for better or for worse, and you can enjoy it or you can not enjoy it, that's totally fine, but you've got this great match and you've got this great show, and it does a good number on TNT, it does an even better rating, it's #1 on cable, it's fantastic, we should be celebrating that, and yet all people really want to focus on is the negative coming out of that, and just pissing and moaning and bitching and complaining about, the finish looked rubbish, or this Shotzi Blackheart, she poked fun at it, she's with WWE, their corporate greed, and all this kind of stuff. Come on. We're better than that. And I know the subscribers on this channel are, and I know the viewers on this channel are, because that's what this channel is all about. It's all about just opinion, voicing your opinion, and a safe space to voice your opinion, have a bit of constructive conversation. And it's just like, sometimes with social media, right? Sometimes with social media, it's just too much, isn't it? It really is too much. Now, I did want to talk about because there was refunds given to some of the fans in attendance last night, and I didn't know this, and it's a good point. We'll touch on that in a second. I do want to talk. I don't want to avoid the chat. Satnam Singh says, I think what happened with the Matt Hardy bump on the concrete, it seemed like a logical idea to play safe with the Jericho bump. Well, exactly. And Satnam makes a great point there. I was very, very critical of AEW for the Matt Hardy bump, where he obviously got knocked out, obviously got concussed, could have been a lot worse and a lot more damaging. He was out for a while, even though he said he wasn't concussed. He was out for a long period of time, and I was very critical for AEW after that because I thought the safety was ignored, and that wasn't good enough. And I'd much rather have the wrestlers be safe when they do these kind of stunts. So that's a great point you make up there, and they've learned from their mistakes there. That's a great point. Andrew Pollard says, wow, wrestling fans can be so damn childish and pathetic. Not all, of course, but some like these responded to Shotzi. Absolutely, I agree. Satnam then said, childish mentality. Some fans are lost. Just enjoy the product on offer. I agree. Darthor says, I love the banter between the two companies. It makes it feel more real in a tree battle. This is modern day DX riding tank into WCW show. And again, I don't mind that. I really don't mind that. For me, it's just when... and maybe this is just the case with social media. Some people just have to take it too far, don't they? They just have to take it too far, and it's so silly. It's so silly, so silly. The thing I will say about we mentioned safety there, and I'll go on to the refunds in a second, but this is just the train of thought here. The thing I will say about safety is, if you do want to complain about something from last night's Blood and Guts show, don't complain about the finish. Don't complain about Jericho going onto the crash mats and all that kind of stuff. If you truly want to complain about something, and it's something that is justifiably we should complain about, or we should at least raise awareness about last night, is all of those unprotected chair shots to the head. That would be something, and again, didn't ruin the match or anything like that, but that would be something that I would say to AEW, look, the finish wasn't executed maybe the best in production and all that kind of stuff, but somebody backstage needs to say to the wrestlers in AEW, they need to have a meeting or they need to make it known, chair shots to the head in 2021, unacceptable. Hard and fast rule, unacceptable. And I don't care what people are going to say about saying, well, they got their hands up or it was thrown in their face and all that kind of stuff. No. I'm not having that. It's 2021. We have been through this at this point. We have the science to back it up. We know about concussions. We know about CTE. Lord knows the tragedies we've had to go through in the world of pro wrestling when it comes to concussions, when it comes to head injuries, when it comes to people losing their memory and all that kind of stuff. We don't need chair shots to the head. We've had people retire because they've suffered concussions. We've had people retire, not just with chair shots, just concussions in general, let alone with chair shots to the head. We're past that at this point. We don't need chair shots to the head. And this is the company as well when it comes to AEW that Cody Rhodes back in 2019 tried to bring back chair shots for the boys. I'm bringing back chair shots when we can do it safely. And Sean Spears hits Cody over the head with a steel chair, and they went, well, we gimmicked it and we tried to make it safe, but still Cody Rhodes managed to cut the back of his head open because the lip was exposed. Chair shots to the head, no. No one's begging for them to be brought back. To be honest, and you can let me know in the live chat about this, whenever I'm watching old footage and old matches on the WWE Network, or I see any old matches and I see these chair shots to the head, now I cringe. I cringe because you know the damage. You know the damage that causes. It causes irreversible damage sometimes. And we still, to this day, we know about CTE and we know about concussions, but realistically, we don't fully still know the effects of what that can do to your brain on a long-term basis. We just know that it's really not good and it's led to some really, really bad stuff and some really, really... some tragedies because of that stuff. So I really don't want to be watching pro wrestling in 2021 and seeing guys getting chair shots to the head. I don't care if they get their hands up. I don't care if it's thrown in their face. I don't care about anything like that. We all know about concussions. We all know about CTE, and we all know about the health risks. You put your health on the line going into the ring anyway. And the point of when you go into a ring and you're working with your opponent is that you're meant to be protecting your opponent. You're meant to leave the ring in the same way that you entered it in terms of your health and your well-being. You're not meant to leave the ring in a concussion, not being able to remember your name or remember your house or remember anything like that. You just don't need it. So if we're going to complain about anything from that Blood and Guts show last night, we don't need to complain about Jericho doing a stunt safely. We don't need to complain about the production. That can be a valid criticism. The one thing, if we want to get up in arms about anything, is chair shots to the head. Because in 2021, nope. They've got no place in pro wrestling like that. No place in 2021 in pro wrestling, especially on a major stage, because we saw the rating now, right? We saw the rating and the viewership now. We had nearly 1.1 million people tune into Dynamite last night, and it was the #1 ranked show on cable. And what we certainly don't need is casual people, casual fans that haven't watched pro wrestling in a while, tuning in and seeing them still being smashed over the head with chairs and going, man, that's dangerous, that's reckless. We don't need that. We don't need that. So if we're going to complain about anything, that's the thing to complain about. That's the thing to complain about. But yes, moving on to the refunds. And again, we'll just do the chat quickly. Daniel Price says, yes, if you want to err on the side of caution after Matt Hardy nearly died on the concrete, but the ending was badly staged and too cheesy to suspend disbelief. Again, I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you, but I'd much rather them be safe. Plus, Wardlow nearly dropped Hager on his head, and Guevara shorted on a jump badly. I was worried about Guevara. I was worried about Guevara for a period of time there because he did a springboard and just completely ate shit on it. It was not good. Daniel Price says, if WWE did a finish like that, people would never let them down and live it down. But AEW does it, they get a pass. Double standard. Well, I'm not saying they get a pass. I'm not saying they get a pass at all. I've been critical of it not looking great. I think they need to learn on their production side of things for big stunts. And it was the same AEW Revolution. I don't think it was as bad as that, but they need to obviously, again, that's a production thing. And WWE have had their fair share of production hitches for sometimes for big stunts and all that kind of stuff. And I would be critical of that. My issue is less with AEW, and I didn't think it looked good. My bigger issue is having people wanting Jericho to legitimately, I guess, hurt himself for the sake of doing the spot. I think that's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous. Andrew Pollard says, agreed on chair shots. They always look horrible, and the injuries that they cause likewise. But now you open my eyes, they should be banned forever. Yeah, I agree. And of course, if you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Smash a like on the like button as well. It really does help us out. Super chats, of course, are open. You can contribute and donate to the channel by clicking the $sign. Donations and contributions are really supported on this channel. We really do appreciate it, and of course we'll read out your comments and turn it into a talking point on this stream. I mentioned the refunds. I've been threatening to get to the refunds for the past however many minutes. There were refunds given out for a few select AEW fans that did attend Blood and Guts last night. So the Inner Circle and the Pinnacle battled it out in the Blood and Guts match on last night's episode of Dynamite. Now, of course, the live show was held in front of 1,500 fans. I thought there was going to be a little bit more, but it was around 1,500 fans in attendance. Now, the first hour of the show reportedly was taped weeks ago. This is according to Dave Meltzer on the Wrestling Observer radio show. Now, as previously reported, the first hour was shown on the big screen for the live fans in attendance. The crowd noise for the taped first hour came from those live fans, so it was not piped in, but from the fans in attendance. Now, AEW President and CEO Tony Khan came out and told fans how the first hour would be handled, and that they would only be getting the Blood and Guts match actually happening live for them in attendance during that night. Now, while the show was not a one-match show for people watching on TV, it was a one-match show for the people in attendance. This was made clear when the tickets went out, but Khan said that for fans who did not know and were not happy about the situation, refunds would be given. Meltzer reported that 5 refunds were giving out. I have a couple of mixed feelings on this, if I'm going to be honest. The reports came out about it being a one-match show a couple of weeks ago, and I made reference to this on the stream last night where I went, oh, that seemed crazy to me, how a 2-hour broadcast could be a one-match show, and I didn't get that. And now we know about it being a one-match show. It was being a one-match show for those in attendance. And I did point this out when I did the stream last night as well, when I was doing the watch-along, that for those opening first few matches, the crowd did seem particularly quiet. And I made reference at the time, I kept saying, why aren't they going to crowd shots? If they've got this large crowd, or reasonably large crowd, especially with the pandemic, reasonably large crowd in attendance, why aren't they going to crowd shots? Because I knew I thought there was about 2,000 fans in attendance, but there was 1,500. I kept saying, why don't they go into the crowd shots? We've got this crowd in attendance, and they seemed quiet. Well, it's because they taped that show weeks ago, and they were showing it on the big screen for the fans in attendance, and the fans in attendance only got to watch live in person the Blood and Guts match. Now, if if the fans in attendance knew this, and the reports that they're coming out are saying that the fans in attendance, the majority at the very least, were aware that this was a one-match show and that they were only going to be watching the Blood and Guts match. If they're aware of it, you know what you're getting yourself in for. You buy your ticket, that's it. And you get what you pay for, and if you're aware of it and you were happy with that, that's fine. If they didn't know, again, I do have mixed feelings on it. I think that, and I don't want to be one of those people that does a WWE versus AEW thing, because Lord knows I've just been ranting and raving for the past half an hour or so about how we don't need to be so tribalistic and all that kind of stuff. I do think that if WWE had done something similar to that, and that they said, oh, the first half of your show is going to be taped and you're going to watch it on a big screen, and then you're only going to see one match live, I think there is no doubt in my mind people would be very, very quick to point that out on social media, and they would be very happy to point that out and bash WWE for it. So I'm not going to give AEW a pass for that. It's a bit like, not exactly like, but it's similar to the Raw 25 show a couple of years ago. When they had the two locations, where you had one in the Manhattan Center and one in the Barclays Center, and the group of fans that was in the Manhattan Center didn't get to see all that much that happened on television. They got to watch some 205 live dark matches, and then a select couple of promos, and was it a Bray Wyatt, Matt Hardy match, and maybe a DX spot, but that was it, and they weren't happy. They were bored and they weren't happy. Now, the difference between this and the AEW situation is that the fans bought the tickets to the Manhattan Center for Raw 25 under the impression they were going to be seeing all of this action. The tickets for the Manhattan Center were significantly more expensive than they would be for Monday Night Raw, and they didn't get all that good of a show. It's not exactly the same, but it's a sort of a similar sort of situation. Look, and AEW, they handed out refunds, so you can't necessarily complain too much, because if you complained and you weren't happy with it, you can get your money back. So, I mean, again, I have conflicting opinions on it, in the sense that if it logistically is a really difficult thing to pull off, then you have to say, well, why are you going to do it for a TV show? You do it for a pay-per-view. Again, like with the finish, like with the Jericho finish, and like with anything when it comes to AEW, I think it was a learning experience. I think is probably a fair thing to say. And for those, as I mentioned, for those that weren't happy, that were in attendance going, oh, I thought I was going to be watching live in person a full match show and all that kind of stuff. If those weren't happy, they've got refunds. And apparently that's 5 of them. That's according to Meltzer. It could be more, it could be less. I don't know. So, again, I have conflicting opinions on it, because part of me wants to... Part of me again goes, oh, but why, buying tickets to watch on a live screen, that's not much of an experience. But to be honest, there's not really a lot to criticize really there, is there? Because if you were aware of it and you bought tickets anyway, that's not AEW's fault. If AEW were transparent with you about that, then that's what that is. And even if you didn't know, if you've got a refund, I believe it was a case of you could get a refund, or you could get significantly reduced tickets for next week's show, which is arguably a way more stacked card next week for Dynamite. So, but again, like I said, I had kind of conflicting opinions on it, because I don't know how I feel about buying tickets to watch 1 hour of a show on a big screen, but AEW were reasonably transparent about it, and they gave refunds, and you could argue, well, they only, Tony Khan came out just before the show and told them how they were going to do it, and they were already in the building at that point, and they already had their money, but they didn't, because they got refunds if they didn't like it. So again, I don't think you can really criticize them too much. I do think that there is an element of saying maybe in the future, when it comes to that, they could have been. I think as even. Those that bought the tickets were probably aware of that. At least they should have been aware that that was the situation. As people like me watching at home, or people that were never going to buy tickets for it because we're in another country or another part of the United States or whatever, it wasn't made totally clear, if that makes sense. And maybe that's what they need to do in the future. Maybe they need to just be really totally upfront, transparent, and be like, this is what's happening. It's not just in the fine print on the ticket websites, or it's not just in a little section on AEW.com or anything like that. Maybe they just need to be totally upfront. You're watching this live. This is going to be taped. Everyone knows it, whether you're attending the show or not. And then just a story like this doesn't come out. Because, again, if you look into the finer details of this story, it's a bit of a non-story, to be honest. But the fact that there is a story gives people ammunition. It gives people opportunity to go, oh, see, look, you can't trust that AEW, and they're just as bad as WWE and all that kind of stuff. And like I said, I think that people would, if this was WWE, I think they would be first to criticize, and they would have so much fun doing it. Lord knows they would. But again, I don't necessarily know if you can really criticize AEW that much for that, because if they sold them the tickets under false pretenses and they didn't give their money back and they just got them into the arena for one match, then you could say, well, actually, but they didn't do that. So I don't think you can really criticize them that much. What I will say, and we'll wrap it up shortly, what I will say is that, and I pointed this out on the stream last night as well, is that the sound and the atmosphere for that main event was off the charts last night. That crowd was into it. That crowd was totally into that main event. They were loud. There was 1,500 fans in attendance, but it felt like a sellout. It really did feel like a sellout, because they were into it. They were popping. They had a great reaction. And as a fan watching it at home on television, I was watching it going, man, that crowd, they are ramped up. They are into it. That this is badass. They are loving this. They are really enjoying this. And again, as a fan watching that, it makes me get excited for Double or Nothing at the end of the month, because Double or Nothing, of course, it was announced yesterday by Tony Khan. He's going to have a complete full attendance. It's going to have 100% capacity. There's going to be about 5,500 fans in attendance, and that's exciting, because if 1,500 fans can make that amount of noise and get into a match that much and really enhance the match by getting so into it and being so excited for the competitors and for the action that's going on in there, 5,500 fans for Double or Nothing is going to be great. It really is going to be great. So it kind of sort of just... yeah, a little bit of a teaser for the palate, really, last night, really, wasn't it? Because I certainly was watching that going, man, I can't wait for Double or Nothing, because that crowd is going to be red hot, and it's just, that is really exciting. That, for me, that's very, very exciting, and I really can't wait for that. I think it really did set the scene for Double or Nothing last night, and we know a bit more, I think, that's going on for Double or Nothing as well now because of last night's show. Obviously, we'll know much more next week, but I think if you want to look at the lay of the land right now as to what's going to happen for Double or Nothing in the card, I think we have a better image of it at this point. I think that we're going to see, I think it's most likely, given their face-off last night, it's Kenny Omega versus Orange Cassidy for the AEW World Championship at Double or Nothing, which, to be honest, I think last night's segment between them was basically a bit of a tester. Are the crowd going to buy it? Are the crowd going to buy it? And the answer was yes. The crowd are absolutely going to buy it, and they're going to be into it. I think that's an exciting match. I think the crowd will definitely be into it, and I think they could do some really fun and unique stuff. My only slight problem with that match is just that there is no part of me that goes, well, maybe Orange Cassidy could win. Because for me, there's no chance. For me, there's just absolutely no chance. And sometimes because a match is predictable doesn't mean it's going to be a bad match. And their objective, I think, going into that match is just going to have to be, can we make it feel, even for a slight second, that it is maybe remotely believable that Orange Cassidy could win the World Championship? If they achieve that, then it's going to be a world-class match. So I think that's the challenge they have. I just don't know if I can fully believe at any point that Orange Cassidy could win. Not because he couldn't be a world champion, just because we know the Kenny Omega plans, that he's not going to drop the AEW World Championship this soon. But if they can pull that off, and with the fans in attendance, who's to say they can't? So that looks to be the World Championship match. I would suspect AEW World Tag Team Championships will probably be the Young Bucks versus Moxley and Kingston, which should be a great match. We know that this coming week or next week on TNT, we're going to have a TNT Championship match, which is going to be Darby Allin versus Miro. I think Miro wins it. And I think that's probably the right decision. I know Darby Allin's red hot and he's on fire and all that kind of stuff, but the fact they did an injury angle with Darby Allin last night where he was thrown down some concrete steps, I think that's an indicator that they're weakening up Darby Allin. So the fact when he loses next week, it's not too much of a devastating loss, because there's a reason why he loses, because of injury against Miro. I think finally it puts a title on Miro, which he absolutely needs. About time that they actually, AEW are going to start using him and pushing this guy to the moon as a singles talent, because he more than deserves it, and he's just an incredible talent. So I think Miro holds the TNT Championship. I think that frees up Darby Allin to team up with Sting to face off against Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky at Double or Nothing. So I think that match looks confirmed. We know that Hikaru Shida is going up against Britt Baker at Double or Nothing. I think Britt Baker finally wins the AEW Women's World Championship then. That should be a great match too. So we're kind of getting into that scenario now where I think Double or Nothing, the card is starting to shape up. We'll probably see Christian Cage versus Brian Cage as well at Double or Nothing, the battle of the cages, because it looks like Christian Cage is feuding with Team Taz on AEW television going forward. So there's a lot of exciting stuff, and that Double or Nothing card is shaping up very nicely. And of course, as I mentioned, we're going to have a 100% crowd capacity there, which is very exciting. Very exciting. And if last night's reaction to that main event is anything to go by, then this could be something special. As to what happens with the Pinnacle and the Inner Circle to wrap things up here, going into Double or Nothing, I would think we probably see a situation where maybe MJF faces off against Sammy Guevara. I think Jericho will probably be off television until Double or Nothing. If I was AEW, I would have, again, Jericho be off television until Double or Nothing. I would then have Jericho return at Double or Nothing during an MJF versus Sammy Guevara match. I would then have Jericho turn on Guevara and set up a Sammy Guevara versus Chris Jericho match at All Out at the end of August, start of September, whenever they have All Out, because Jericho can then continue to be a heel. Sammy Guevara is the babyface. Jericho obviously works better as a heel. And Jericho can do the mentality of, how dare you surrender on my behalf? How dare you surrender a match and have the Inner Circle lose a match? You cost the Inner Circle a match. You surrendered on behalf of me. How dare you do that? What do you think, I'm weak? Would you think just because I'm 50 years old, you don't think I can take it? All that kind of stuff. That leads to Jericho versus Guevara at All Out. Jericho can put over Sammy Guevara, elevates Sammy Guevara to the main event level in the same way that he did for MJF last night. Because, and this is why I'll finish on, this is what I tweeted on social media last night, and I think is the most important thing coming out of Blood Guts, is that for a long period of time, ever since AEW started, 2019, everyone's spoken about MJF in the vein of, this guy's so talented. He's got so much potential. He can be a future main eventer. He can be a future main eventer. He can be a future star for AEW. We need to stop talking about MJF's potential as a main eventer. We need to stop talking about MJF's potential to be a main event star. He is a main event star. He is a star for the company now. It's that simple. The closing moments last night of Jericho falling off the cage and MJF pushing Chris Jericho off a cage, pushing him to his demise, standing there celebrating, bloody face, like this consummate top heel, just said to me, this guy's a star. He's a bona fide star. It's not any more about potential. He is a main eventer. He is a star. He's arguably the top heel, one of the top heels in AEW right now, and his star is only going to shine brighter. But this idea now that I think of people going, this guy's going to be such a big star in the future and he's got so much potential. Let's stop talking about potential. MJF is here now. He is a star right now. And I think that's the thing that came out of that last night. Jericho absolutely elevated MJF to another level. He took this guy to an absolute another level, and it was fantastic to see. It really was. But look, guys, we're going to wrap it up there. But of course, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on the AEW Blood and Guts, drawing 1.090 million viewers on TNT last night, ranking number 1 in the cable top 150 for the first time? If you're watching this on demand, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll be sure to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about the likes of AEW, Impact Wrestling, WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed today's stream, be sure to smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Gut the Rankings, get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or we'll put, if you're watching this on demand, we'll put an end screen up so you can click subscribe on the button there along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this stream today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.